Good Shabbos. This week we begin studying the Torah anew. And in those shuls that are open, they're going to read Parshas Bereshis, the first portion of the entire Torah again. In our relationship with Torah, there are a number of terminologies that are used to speak of the Jewish people's relationship with Torah. In the morning blessings, we are called Lemdei Seresecha, those who study your Torah. In the Pirkei Avot, also mentioned in the prayer specifically associated with Hanukkah, we're called Oiskei Seresecha, those who involve themselves with Torah study. And I'll explain that in a moment. And at the end of our service every day, we say a section, the Bryce it's called, from the Talmud, where we are called Oyevei Seresecha, those who love your Torah. What are these three levels? So Lemdei Seresecha simply means those who study your Torah, like you study any other field of knowledge, intellectual endeavor. Then you move up a level to become Oiskei Seresecha. Oiskei Seresecha means that you see Torah as a business. What do you mean as a business? Just like a businessman is not going to wait for people to come to him to buy his wares, but he will make cold calls and warm calls and seek all kinds of leads and contacts in order to find those who will buy his goods. He's not just going to stay back and wait for them to come. So it is with Torah. You don't just, if I happen to be in shul and the rabbi gives a drasha, I'll listen to the shir. If I happen to be in an environment, there's a shir going on, okay, maybe I'll listen. But Oiskei Seresecha means I'm going to go and search and look for opportunities of studying Torah. If it's going to be online, it's going to be in person, it's going to be a recorded shir, if it's going to be a written shir. I'm going to do whatever I can because this is my business. This is something I care about, to study this Torah. In the same way, to teach Torah. I'm not going to say, I'm going to teach if you want to come, but I'm going to have to go out and look for those who want to study Torah, or look for Jews and inspire them to want to study Torah, because this is our business. But lastly, the highest level is what we say at the end of the service. And reach that level, they were called the lovers of Torah. And it seems strange to call it love. Torah is intellectual pursuit. It's not really related to love. But we see Jews love Torah. That's why we dance with the Torah and Simchas Torah. There is not only an involvement with Torah, but this is unique to the Jewish people, that we actually are in love with Torah. You see anybody, even if you care so much, say the Bill of Rights or Constitution of a country, and you feel that's important, no one takes it and dances with it, like we do on Simchas Torah with the Torah. Because the relationship of the Jewish people to the Torah is unique in that we're actually in love with Torah. And that level, the level of love of Torah, is very significant, because when your children see that your relationship with Torah is not something that you have to do, or even something you're fully involved with, but something that you actually have passion for and are in love with, that is the best way to transmit the Torah on to the next generation. When you send your children to day schools, but when they come home, they don't see an involvement of their parents with Torah, it doesn't have the same effect and impact as when they come home and they see, what's my father care about? He's running to shir here and there. He's online finding something, either the written word, the oral, the audio, video, a shir from this one, from that one. It's little clips that he's listening to on his WhatsApp or other means that are associated with Torah. That gets communicated in the next generation more than anything. And the verse actually concludes, or the statement from the Talmud concludes, Ve'ein lamei michsha. Ein lamei michsha means there is no stumbling. If you have Torah, if you have love with Torah, that will stop you from stumbling. Let me give you a little anecdotal story that emphasizes this and that brings this out. Shalom Rabashkin was famously imprisoned for a number of years. In any event, whilst he was in prison, in the American prison system, if for religious reasons you need something, they have to provide it. So, for example, You have kosher food, they have to provide you kosher food. And then they provided Arba Minim, the 4 species. The lulav of the esrog was provided by the prison system to the Jewish prisoners. There would be one set for everybody, and unfortunately, what happened was that when there was one set for everybody, some people didn't know how to use it. And the time the next day came, Shol Mordechai would get this set of Arba Minim, and it would be non-kosher already. So he petitioned to get his own set, which he did. And thereby other prisoners were also able to get their own set, which he was very happy about. When it comes to Sukkot, they had to make a sukkah, and they were able to eat outdoors in the sukkah, which was seen as a very big privilege. And so other people also claimed to be connected to Judaism, like Seventh-day Adventists and people like that, and therefore were also able to get those kind of privileges. They would get matzah on Pesach, they would get challah for Shabbos. Why not? They would have a lulav and esrog on Sukkot as well, and they decided they too want to sit in the sukkah. Unfortunately, they would come into the sukkah with treif, with food, and the Jewish prisoners who were there, the kosher prisoners, would have to deal with the stench of this treif food whilst they're eating in the sukkah, which was not very pleasant. Then, what happened was that once they're sitting in the sukkah, the group of Jewish prisoners, and the Simchas Torah, and they're starting to pray. And as they start to pray, they look on the other side of the sukkah, this other group, standing with a talus and with a lulav and esrog and saying all kinds of words, mumble jumble, just to disturb them. They found that this other group of people were just trying to disturb them. Then they started the hakafot, and they started to walk around and dance with whatever Torah they had. I would assume it wasn't a Sefer Torah, but it was probably works of Torah. And all of a sudden, the other group just stood there with respect and quiet. And then the leader walks out, and then they all walk out. What happened was, there is no contrary dimension to a Jew's love of Torah. When we have love of Torah, then all negativity, all things that hinder us fall away. That's the message. When you show an expression of love of Torah, everything that hinders you in your Yiddishkeit will fall away, including those things that hinder the continuity of Yiddishkeit for the next generation. So as we start this week and look forward very soon to opening up in less than a week and a half, we'll be able to be open once again. We should resolve that as we open up, we will come to more shiurim, learn more, involve ourselves in Torah more, and show our children how much we love it. Good Shabbos.